Okay, folks, we're going to show you my analog PA system that I use for relatively small and medium rooms. It does a good job on some smaller outdoor performances too. Some of you might say, oh, that's a lot of stuff for that, but it's clean as hell. Okay, again, all analog stuff, no digital boards and so forth on this rig. Okay, again, some of you just asked to see it, and I'll go through most of the stuff on this particular setup using the latest edition of the Allen Heath Mix Wizard, the WZ4. It's a 16 channel. You have 4 monitor sends, 2 effect sends, and you do have 2 effects on here which I never use. They're on here because the internal presets on the effects are not EQable. That's a big thing with me, is having EQ on the effects themselves, so I don't use internal effects for that reason. So is 16 channels enough? Not usually, but sometimes. That's why I have sub mixers elsewhere, so I don't eat up all the channels and then have nothing left. Sometimes you have to sub mix things like drums or such things. So submixers are submixers. So great little board, pretty much an industry standard, and again, that's the latest version as of 2020. Okay, here's the underneath the mixer, the processing. So what is all that? Of course, I'll let you know, and why I use what I use. Of course, just a regular power conditioner, which is a glorified power strip. Most of you know what those are at, or what they're for. Like I said, I do not use the internal effects, so I use an old Alesis tried and true quad reverb with the Groovy reverb and my Groovy delay on the old Digitech. Again, I like these better because you can set the parameters, and you cannot do that on the internal effects. I use a slight bit of reverb on drums and on like an acoustic instrument, and hardly any on vocals at all. Maybe just a little on some slow tunes. If you listen to country music, which is what I do, if you listen to the radio at all, I'd say, I'm going to use a fake number, but 998 out of 1,000 songs don't have any effects on the vocals of any kind that you can hear, other than compression or a slight room reverb, which you would never hear, maybe a plate, but you'd never hear it. Why is it on? Because it is. With the delay, it's just there just for if you happen to be doing a rockabilly tune that kind of sounds nice on a Stray Cats tune, or if you're doing Led Zeppelin or something, you're going to need her on there, or some Pink Floyd. Yeah, in a country band, we do those every now and then. Okay, so what else do I do to my effects? I do run them to 2 different channels up on the mixer, and I also never have enough EQ for my effects, so I use a 15 band EQ for each of my effects as well. All my EQs are rain. Okay, so I use a 15 band on the reverb, and the other side of it, the 15 band on the delay unit. That's just the more EQ I can get, the better. And even though the mixer has a lot of sweepable EQs, 3 of them, and then a fixed high and a fixed low, it's nice to have more. Really super tailor that high end on the reverb and get rid of some of that low end and some of those nasty frequencies in there. Like 630 is always nasty, and as is 160 on about everything. So you can see the dips in that and the sparkle on the high end of the verb there. So next, 4 Rain 31 band EQs. They're all hooked up all the time and are just inserted with whatever is needed. I will generally do the kick drum is always through one, and bass guitar if needed, I'll throw it through a 31 band. Why so much? Because you can, the more frequencies, the better you can EQ stuff. And depends on if I'm having a problem with something or something else just needs extreme detailing. I will use that. Okay, there's a guitar tuner mounted in with the line out going to the entire mix, so people can check their tuning at any given time, you know, at low volume or a line volume. Anything that gets the tuner to trigger, it's here. If somebody's not using their own. So whatever the reason, if somebody wants to get up and jam and they don't have a tuner, they can plug into this sucker real quick or tune out loud. Doesn't matter. There's a tuner in here. Okay, we have the 4-space active DI. Okay, so all your direct boxes right there for anything you might need. Of course, I have a couple dozen external ones, the whirlwinds usually. But it's here if need be and patchable within a second. Okay, now down here, people are like, what in the world? Okay, these are all the, I enjoy these. The Alesis 3630 compressors. People are like, what? At least use the DBX version. I like these. They are dual channel, so there's 8 of them here, which comes up to 16 channels. Okay, 16 channel board, 16 channels of compression and gates, okay, and limiting. So with all that going on, yes, I compress everything, not to a stupid point. Some things, yeah, kick drum, bass guitar, all the drums get compressed. Some things barely, like the vocals and things that you want to really, really retain their natural attack. Otherwise, everything does get gated. When I gate every single thing at its minimal point, you know, I don't want these things to cut off anything naturally. So it's just when something is not being played at all that nothing will be coming through. So my speakers make zero noise on breaks or what have you, even though it's pumping a lot of power. You will not hear horn hiss. You won't hear anything else like that. It's just a beautiful thing. So again, the ability to use compression on anything on any channel at any time. So even if you're not using the compression, you can just simply bypass the compression but leave the gate on, and so forth and so on. So yes, I will quote unquote waste the space. 8 spaces to do that, so half the rack. Beautiful thing, love it. I'll show you the backs of the racks too here in a second. Okay, going to head over to the monitor rack. Okay, here's the monitor rack in the dark. Beautiful, huh? Gotta love those fans. Okay, let's get some light on the subject. Anyway, so yeah, the other one in the dark. Let me make sure I get all the gate lighting. Isn't it beautiful? Okay, so let's get some light on the monitor rack. And what we have here, of course, another strip. Okay, we have EQs for each of the monitor sends. So since there are 4 monitor sends, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 15 band EQs, so 1 for each one. Easy enough to understand. Again, to get the entire mix of the monitors sounding great, not just one particular thing, but what everybody needs, which is simply making sure they don't feed back. It's not to enhance too much, but to actually, again, control what's going on stage as far as getting rid of the feedback and maybe getting a little extra high end in there that is controllable, whatever you can get off of it. But so for those, then you'll see we have another dual 15. These are for the side fills, which actually get the same mix as the mains. Okay, so I can actually hear those on a separate thing, separate volumes, simply by using these. That's the only way I use the volume for the side fills. I use small cabinets for that with a 10 and a horn. but I use 4 of them, total 2 on each side, and they both have their own EQ depending on what anybody on the other side wants, but it gives you a true mix of what's coming out the front. Not EQ wise so much, but as far as the actual mix, so you can mix by ear better than most people by simply listening to the side fills instead of your monitors. I can kick them in, kick them out, whatever, depending on what you like. Of course, the lovely blue fan. Get them any color you want, or you can change the colors, blah, 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 blah. Fans are necessary, of course, and even the big box fans and what have you to put in the back, along with any other fans you might have in the back. Okay, so you can't have enough flipping fans. The power amps here, believe it or not, I use all the Behringer stuff. Midas bought out Behringer. These are the iNuke NU4 6000s, which are the 4-channel amps. All their amps are quite light, okay, and I just really dig them. Have had zero problem with them. The natural tone of the amp is fine. They're Class D, which scared me at first, but after using them with zero fault, I have zero problems with these. I use monitor 1, 2, 3, and 4 with plenty of juice. Up here on the spare amp, I use channel 1 for one side of the side fills, channel 2 for the other side, and then 3 and 4 are wired in the back, all ready to go for anything else you want to make them be. Okay, so if something were to go out anywhere on any power amp, I'm going to end up with the same power on these that I have anywhere on the sound system. Okay, so that's the front of the monitor rack, and we'll head off to the main power rack. Okay, so here's the main power rack in the dark, again featuring the lovely blue fans. Lighten this thing up so we can see what's going on. Okay, we have the bad boy of all power conditioners and so forth. This thing actually controls your voltage along with supplying the big 20 amp, and the you have a different type of end on your power cable on the back of this. You can use an adapter to fit a standard wall plug if you want, or you can look for the proper one, which will give you better juice. Down here again, another Alesis 3630 compressor. I use it as overall compression for the entire mix, which I do very lightly, but it's just no different than making a record where they do the same thing. They compress the entire mix. So I consider everything just the same as if you're making a record. You treat it the same way. You compress what needs to be, and you have it available to you. Even on, of course, the digital stuff, instead of the analog systems, have compression for you at the touch of a fingertip for every single channel. But the main deal I use this for on here is for the gate, the final gate before it hits the mains, you know, before it hits the power amps. So I can gate the entire system, you know, again, as light of a touch as I can. So again, so the entire PA, you can't even hear the hiss of the power amps. It is just that quiet. Okay, so we have the crossover, which I don't need much here. My top cabinets, you'll see in a little bit, of course, are two-way. I don't need to cross them over. I'm happy with the crossover point, but of course the subs need crossed over, and you need simply a volume for your subs, a volume for your highs, and just a crossover frequency, which is down to 100 hertz for my rig. Okay, so that's another Rain product. That's the Mojo. Nice, easy crossover to use. And these are self-explanatory. Again, with the iNuke 6000 2 channels. They're not the NU4, it's just the regular NU 6000s, straight across the board. I just really dig them. And using 4 different subs, so I'm using 4 channels on the amps. If I wanted to, I could, of course, put them in bridge mode, blah, 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 but if you know things correctly, you'll get actually less power per cabinet if you bridge into 2 cabinets instead of using 1 side per cabinet. Even though the wattage is up, you get less power per cabinet. So that's why I run simply 1 channel per cabinet. And the high cabinets, the tops, same way up here. So that's my main rack on the front. We'll take a quick look at the back of things and see what I've got going on there before we move on to the other racks that I have going around. Okay, time to look at the backs of the racks. They need to be, or mine need to be, clean and easy to use. You'll see all the channels of the snake going up and into the mixer right here. So we've got a 16 channel snake right down here, and here's the top of that, which just pulls out, of course, to plug everything into. I have some drop snakes, which are 4, 6, 8 channels that you can, throw one on one side of the stage, one on the other, one back to the drummer, what have you, if it's a larger stage. Okay, everything on here is done with the shortest amount of cabling possible, believe it or not. Again, these are all wired back into all the EQs and the compressors. On the back, anything I use, make sure that you have ventilation to it. This being the processing rack, I don't need too much, so I basically am using these blanks on the back of the rack to hold cabling inside of it. Okay, and you'll see I have another power strip, power conditioner here on the back. That's because I want more junk plugged into it rather than power strips. I don't want regular power strips in there. I just would rather have them go through something that's actually designed for this. Okay, you can see this. Here's the back of the monitor rack. Down here is the back of the main rack. Inside all the racks, I always make sure that there is a lamp that is always on. They're in here, and then I currently have that guy, which goes inside here. So yeah, need lighting on the subject. Everything is nice and clean. Everything is labeled. Okay, so just punched out whole racks that I've put in my own jacks. So you have your monitor 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, this is the monitor rack. I have, these are going in, so you can put microphone cables, Neutrik, or Speakon, whatever you want to call it, or 1/4 inch into these jacks to go into monitor 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so those are the inputs. These are the speaker outputs. Here's my side fills going in, and speakers out for the side fills 1 and 2, and then just 2 more spare speaker output jacks. Easy to use, always hooked up, ready to roll. I was just doing some quick checking in here, which is why things are slightly plugged in enough for my laptop to make some sound. Okay, down here on the main rack, you'll see the blanks down here are, again, for ventilation on the amps. Okay, so you put the big box fan back here, but you also have the blue ones going on over there. Over here, I have the subs out. So there's sub 1, another sub, another sub, another sub, a top, and a top. Here's a side fill out, and then that goes up to the side fills in. Okay, so that's just coming out of the main EQ is actually split and goes into here. Okay, and this is the mains in from coming out of the main mixer, goes over here to the main power here, and that's the way that one rolls. But everything is nice, clean, tidy as it can get as far as this stuff. Again, as you can see here at the bottom of the monitor rack, it's just all the power cables and any other things that may be back here. Mainly it's just power amp cables and the remnants of the speaker cables that are inside there that run to these. They're again as short as they can possibly be, but still long enough to go to another power amp if need be. Okay, so that's how neat and wonderful I keep all of that. Okay, here are my other racks that may or may not be used. Okay, and just what these are, this here is simply a 16 channel Mackie. If anybody needs numbers, there you go. 16 channel spare mixer for drums or whatever if need be. So it's all ready to go and has 2 8-channel drop snakes in the back of it. Down here is another dedicated, I basically call it a drum rack or whatever. You have a 10-channel mixer over here, which would be a Crappinger, which has effects, which of course I would not use on it. And down here, I like these. The Rolls mixer. These are very cool. 6-channel mixer. Again, there's a 6-channel drop snake back there if I need this. I use these also on guitars. Okay, let you see what the controls are. You have monitor, bass, treble, pan, effect send. But say you have a Strat, you go into one channel. You got a Les Paul, go into another channel. You got a Firebird, go into another channel, blah, blah, blah. Put all your guitars through your amp, and you can adjust your volume and EQ so that each guitar is set up with the same, output. Yeah, some people like to have different outputs from different guitars, but if you like everything to be uniform, the best way to do it, I have found, is this way. Not just by turning up and down on the guitar, but actually have the same amount of signal available for every guitar going into the amp. Okay, and you'll see, yeah, there's 8 more channels of compression and gating going on, again with the Alesis 3630s. Okay, so 8 more ready to go, so that if we do bypass the drums going into the main mixer and main compressors, we have them right here as well, along with a 5-channel DI, active DI here. So that's nice to have. Direct boxes are always groovy, and sometimes right there in the rack is plenty. Okay, so that's groovy. And the bad boy rack, not meaning it's a really amazing bad rack. Okay, here's another one of those mixers, the Rolls mixers. It's a little different model, but it can do what needs to be done here, which is 3 different drum modules, electronic, and I've got about 10, no, I've got about 15, I think, drum triggers for people who just cannot get their drums right. I'll go ahead and put those on their drums and lickety-split, mount them to their rims, and turn all this crap on. And right here we've got the three modules, 3 different gates. So a 5-channel PV gatekeeper. Such great gates, nice and easy. But I'll put those on the drums because they have better kick drums on some than others, and snares as well. Toms, you can do whatever you want, of course, but if they just don't know what the hell they're doing with their drums, I will make them electronic and everything is solved. Okay, so no ringing, no out-of-tune crap, blah, blah, blah. If they don't like the electronic thing, then they should get better at doing their drums. You know, it's just the way things are. So those are my 3 racks that will stay in the van unless there's a bad drumming situation. Mainly what I did all 3 of these for. Okay, as far as my main cabinets go, you're looking at them here. You're thinking, what the hell? Okay, let's make some sense out of this. You can tell that the bottom cabinets, you know, have a nice big port on the back end. They are deep. They each have, they're Mackeys, all of them. They have 4 10s in them, each cabinet. That gives super punch, okay, in country music again. We don't need subs going down doing 20 hertz and so forth, you know, so maybe a little bit of 40 in there, which it handles fine, then drops off quickly after that. But these things kick like mules, and that's a good thing. That kick drum will, I mean, just flat out crush your rib cage and decalcify your spinal column. Okay, so you get more out of these than you do 18s or a 15. There's just much more speaker cone size total per cabinet than what you would get with the others, and therefore these are nice and tight instead of floppy in a cabinet. It's like, well, if you had 2 18s on the bottom, it would not match, you know, 8 10s on the bottom, and then 8 10s, and then up here we have 4 8s and a 2-inch compression horn, of course. In there, everything, the horn is up at about 6.5 feet. 7 feet is nominal. Why they didn't put the horn at the very top is beyond me, but I love those cabinets. I love this whole rig. They didn't keep it around for long at all. If you're saying, well, no doubt, you'd have to hear and feel this thing to know how groovy these are. But very exceptional. All the cabs are, see, what are they? 750 watts RMS is what they are. So that's why we're doing medium to smaller gigs, size rooms. Like I'm saying, they will still, you know, cover a much larger area. But the deal is always to put power amps in there that will put almost twice as much power into each cabinet than what it can handle. That's the main thing for you people. I'm just talking as I go along to give you some helpful hints. And that way you turn it down at the compressor. I mean, sorry, at the crossover. And, you know, use as much power as they will handle. I mean, you know, set it so that it can use as much as it can handle. But you have all that headroom that keeps everything clean instead of driving your power amps at full capacity. Keeps those from overheating also and shutting down. The tops handle the same. So it's a beautiful thing. Again, like I said, they just flip and kick hard, and they're not floppy or whoopy or anything like that. If you think about it, like all your 8, 10 cabinets, your Ampeg, SVTs and stuff, they're just tight and tight and tight as hell. And a lot of people back in my old days, they would actually try using those for PA cabinets and then throw in a horn on top. And sometimes they sounded pretty good, except for they just weren't deep enough to make everything sound great. So, of course, these are quite deep. And then the cabinets are trapezoids, so you, on the top, so you, if you go this route, you can actually make them more trapezoid than they are, so you don't have any kind of nastiness going on with the horns and so forth. So they're just set up this way because they're stored that way. Okay, so those are the main cabinets. And of course, yes, everything's Speakon on the back. You don't have 1/4 inches on anything that's a pro rig. Okay, so that's those. Okay, believe it or not, this is going to be the funny part. Yes, that word. These are what I use for my little side fills. I'll put 2 per speaker stand, you know, with the little double thing so that you can have both. but I like putting 2 of these on the speaker stand, and 2 of those per side for side fills. They're only 75-watt cabinets, but they sound really good for what these things are. They're the 10-inch speaker and the little piezo compression horn instead of a tweeter horn. So I have 8 of these laying around. I like the top ones better just because I like them better. They're built more rugged. So you'll notice the color around these and around the big cabinets over here looks like cork. I took that and painted them just to be reminiscent of vintage carving gear out of the 70s that used that color. I just thought it was kind of a cool look. So yeah, those are what I use for side fills. Okay, these are 4 of 8 of my monitors that I use. These are also main cabinets that I use for the tops and some of my DJ gear, which is why they are so groovy. Yeah, I know, I have to do all 4. Anyway, but yeah, they lay at 2 different angles for monitors. Normally I would never use a 15 for anything, but since they do have a 6.5 in them as well, plus the 1-inch horn, it helps the clarity of the vocals and such a whole lot better. Plus, that's without, if it was a 15 and a horn, I wouldn't have bought them to begin with. But like I said, with that 6.5, clarity definitely comes up. And again, the paint scheme on these things did all that thing. So wasn't going to dig out all 8 of them just for the video. You kind of understand what double of these mean. Okay, so again, these are monitors, and that's basically it. I use all EV mics for everything. Love them to death. No shares to be found, no other brands to be found. Just every EV thing over overheads, every possible mic you could think of. Just love them over top of everything else. So that's about it. Hope those of you who asked for this got what you wanted. So you guys stay groovy, and I'm out of here.